Announcements for president, right? I mean, isn't the bread and butter, right, the campaign actually getting the nomination and then becoming president? I mean, when were announcements such a big deal?
Well, I think we probably ushered in 2016 when then candidate Trump sort of famously came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower in Manhattan. And I think everyone sort of saw, Trump is a marketing sort of media genius, and he really sort of manipulated that spectacle like it was a scene from Celebrity Apprentice. But we all paid attention. And now that sort of sense of theater has extended so that, Ron DeSantis is making a splash. Instead of just doing sort of a standard stump speech, he's aligning with Elon Musk, who's kind of a conservative free speech hero, and he's doing something on Twitter, which I'm not sure. I mean, I really respect Andrew Napolitano. I'm a fan of his for a long, long time. I'm not sure that tens of millions of people are going to be tuning in to Twitter Spaces when I'm not sure that there are tens of millions of people that know how to access Twitter Spaces. So it's more of a messaging than it is sort of an outreach plan.
Right. Count me in that category. I think I've been on one Twitter space and I needed help to maneuver around
Right.
some of the technological challenges. Right. So why choose this? Is it a safe space? I guess pun intended for him. He's with a friend, right? They say it's going to be a free form kind of town hall, but you can still decide what questions you're going to take or not.
Well, correct. And I think, honestly, what he's doing is he's aligning himself with Elon Musk, who is an entrepreneur, who's building these things. He's going to space. Like, again, he's like sort of seen as a heroic savior against big tech on the right, so he can rally that base. And so I think that's his suggestion there. I think that also there's a chance that Trump, has his compete. It's almost a proxy battle between social media platforms, Twitter versus Truth Social. Trump is now back on Twitter, but he hasn't tweeted yet. My reporting suggests there's a very decent chance that in the middle of the spaces, Trump could suddenly try to get attention by saying something crazy and insulting towards Ron DeSantis, as is his wont, to try to deflect the attention. But here we are. We're talking about it, and I guess that's the plan.
I thought the same thing, Colby. I was like, in some way, somehow or another, that Trump would try to interject into the conversation, right? And will they allow it, right? They're the ultimate police of it.
Even if he's not allowed to say anything within the spaces, he could very well tweet something, and media reporters like Mediaite will jump all over that and sort of make that a story, because again, it's not even a boxing match, to quote sort of Judge Napolitano. It's more like pro wrestling, right? Like there's a good guy and a bad guy, and it's not clear yet who's the heel and who's the face, who's the ultimate warrior and who's Hulk Hogan in this dynamic. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of trash talking, a lot of insults. And I think people are kind of eager to see if DeSantis is going to finally punch back as hard as he's received punches from Trump over the past few months.
Right. And I guess to that point, Colby, some are wondering who's even in the ring, right? Is it a two-man race for the Republican nomination? A lot of people really liked Senator Tim Scott's speech from South Carolina this week, thought it was positive. But, I mean, does anybody else have a shot against these two?
I do. I really think that they do. I think there's a lot left there's a lot of ball left to play. We're in the second inning here. And I think Trump has a lot of serious legal problems that could keep him from getting votes and, really being a serious candidate. I think Ron DeSantis has a pretty well reported personality issue, and we'll see how that comes out. So someone like Nikki Haley or Tim Scott, who I was really impressed with the positivity of his message, or Mike Pence, or anyone could easily slot in and fill a spot, and maybe end up doing a lot better, because I think Joe Biden's basically running as not Trump. And if Biden goes up against someone that's not Trump, that kind of takes away his biggest proponent at this point.
Real quickly, I've heard him described as the porcelain candidate. We'll see if he comes out swinging, if he can handle the ire of the former president. But when you say personality issues, I mean, what are you hearing? What are some of the concerns, challenges for DeSantis?
Well, he's not necessarily a great retail politician. There was video recently where he was in Iowa and he just seemed stiff. There was a famous moment during the end of COVID where there was high school kids with masks on and cameras were rolling, and he sort of chided the kids for taking the masks off. That's something that Trump would never do, because he's a performer. He knows when the cameras are on. And while DeSantis was trying to sort of make a point that he doesn't need masks around him, he also kind of came across looking at like a guy that yells at kids, right? The kids were wearing masks because they were directed to. So
thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.